Epilogue. Dueling is magic. A rip in time epilogue. Yosei is back home and back on the job working on momentum. He has a lot on his mind and is still looking for answers. But 100 years into Equestria's future, Spike has questions of his own. Yosei sat in his office chair, staring out the window. Today was bright and sunny. He heard the door open. Steady footsteps made their way toward his desk. Yosei saw in the reflection of the glass who it was.
"I'm still not convinced that the future is unchanged," said Yosei. "I'm not writing it off completely. If it is true, I've already got a few ideas we could try on the fortune mainframe that might help. But I'm not entirely convinced. Night Shroud has the ability to read people's hearts. It's possible that it gave you the information about the fortune mainframe so you would try to throw me off my game."
"No, Yosei," said Paradox.
"Even now, without Night Shroud's influence, I know that this is true. In my timeline, you created the fortune mainframe after retiring from pro dueling. Though you meant well, your creation turned on humanity, just as your father's did."
Yosei spun his chair around to face Paradox.
"Show me," he said. "Show you?"
Paradox repeated.
"You know the risk to the dimensional barriers, Yosei. Jumping through time has weakened the borders and it could take hundreds of years for them to regenerate. The dimensional barriers can handle 2 more jumps," said Yosei. "One to the future and one back. I want to see for myself if the future has changed or not."
Paradox sighed.
"Very well," he said. "I suppose I could risk 2 more jumps."
Though cloudless, the air around the mountains was very cold, signaling the coming of winter. Celestia and Luna glided through the air, beating their wings often to keep up their body heat and fight the cold. The two landed on a large outcropping about halfway up the side of a mountain. A huge, purple dragon crawled out of the massive cave that loomed before them.
"You wanted to speak with us, Spike,"
said Celestia. The massive dragon poked his head out of his cave.
"I take it you got my letter," said Spike. "I had to get Garble to write it. Amazing he never got any bigger since the day I met him 100 years ago." "That would explain the spelling,"
Celestia chuckled.
"Your letter said you wished to speak with both of us," said Luna. "Yes," said Spike. "I spent a lot of time around Twilight when I was young. And ever since the day Paradox invaded 100 years ago, I did a lot of thinking, working out the whole thing in my head. Something you said stuck out with me, Princess Luna, and I came to a different conclusion." "What is it, Spike?"
asked Celestia.
"Luna, you said that paradoxes could rip our dimension apart," Spike said. "But everything that happened then was a giant paradox. Our dimension remains, and I think I know why."
Luna was silent.
"A paradox is only dangerous if nothing is done to reconcile it with the rest of the timeline," Spike explained. "A lot of things happened during those events that reconciled everything with the rest of the timeline. Me telling myself not to mention anything to Applejack when she showed up 100 years later. Your memories of how the entire thing was fixed. Pinkie Pie throwing a flower pot at Paradox only to have it hit Twilight in the head during her first adventure with time travel. And something else that Twilight told me. What Pinkie Pie whispered to her younger self was that she should throw Twilight a party once they met in Ponyville. This would explain the reaction she had, which was in stark contrast with how she reacted to anyone else new she met over the years. Ultimately, what the elements of harmony did was repair the torn space by applying energy through the singularity. It all fixed itself because it had always happened.
Luna closed her eyes. Celestia smiled.
Very impressive, Spike, she said. Like I said, I've had a long time to think about it,
Spike said with a shrug.
Everything you said is true,
said Luna.
I may have exaggerated. You could have at least said that an unreconciled paradox would have ended the universe, you know,
said Spike.
I implied,
Luna said.
All right, you too,
said Celestia.
Spike, what exactly is your purpose in telling us your discovery? You two know a lot more about time travel than you've ever let on,
said Spike.
In fact, during my adolescence, you may remember that Twilight and I took a field trip to the star swirl the Bearded Wing. We went because of my curiosity, not hers. I noticed that there were a few books missing from the shelves, and the records said they had been checked out by both of you shortly after Paradox's attack. But the title of one book has been bugging me for 100 years now.
Celestia and Luna looked up at him. They knew before he said anything what title he was about to say.
The Myth of Man.
Celestia and Luna looked at each other.
Yusei wasn't the first human encountered in this world, was he?
Asked Spike.
No, Spike,
said Celestia.
No, he wasn't. Nor was Paradox.
Author's note: yes, this is leading exactly where you think it's leading. I wrote myself into this, and now I have to write another sequel. Squeal with glee all you like, I'm not happy about it. There are days when I wish I could just turn my brain off like this computer. I want to be done with this, but I can't be until I've written a definitive end to the entire thing. Which means a trilogy. Confound it all. Here's a trailer. Neo-Domino City, a once thriving metropolis. Now, it is a war zone. A tyrant has forcefully conquered the city and now wages war on the citizens of Neo-Domino. Team 5Ds is scattered across the globe, its members now mere refugees unable to stop the madmen rampaging through the streets of their beloved city. Only one man can stand up to the tyrant, but even his immense power is not enough. A dark shadow looms over the center of the city. At the edge of defeat and on the verge of death, the lone hero is saved by 7 unlikely allies from his past. As the tyrannical ruler of Neo-Domino City turns his eyes on the rest of the planet, the bearers of harmony must fight for their lives and the lives of their friends. Secrets will be revealed, friendships will be destroyed, and the fate of 2 worlds linked by time and destiny hangs in the balance. The journey, the war, and the reign of the Black King begin with these words.
Delta XL Synchro.
My Little Pony. Dueling is magic. End of chapter. End of book.